Hi, I'm Peter Scarlet, your host for Cinemondo, World Cinema on Link TV, and I'm especially pleased that this week we're presenting an exciting new film from Singapore called Singapore Dreaming, and the young couple who were responsible for directing and writing it are here with us today, and I'm very pleased to introduce Wu Yan and Colin Goh.
Hello, our pleasure to be here, and we are very excited that Singapore Dreaming is on Cinemondo.
Your film is a tale about a family, a contemporary family in Singapore, but since you're here, I think it might be best if you say a few words of introduction for our viewers who will be seeing the whole film in just a few minutes.
It's a story about a family in Singapore and its ups and downs, and happiness that they experience and then the sadness that they experience. So it's kind of very typical of a family in Singapore, and we hope that this will be a good introduction to our small little country of Singapore.
Singapore Dreaming really catches Singapore at a time of transition, and we are trying to show a country that has become very rich, very fast, and what that does to the family dynamic. And I hope that audiences will not just be introduced to our home country, but also see a little bit of themselves in the characters as well.
Thank you, and we'll be back at the conclusion of Singapore Dreaming, which is 105 minutes long, to continue our discussion with the filmmakers. Have a good screening. Hi, I'm Peter Scarlet here at Cinemondo for Link TV. I'm back here with Colin Goh and Wu Yan, who wrote and directed this wonderful film. And I guess I'd like to start off by saying, where did this film come from? Is it from your personal experience or your observations, or how did you get this film started?
It began when we first moved to New York, actually. We came to do our graduate studies. We got a little homesick, and we were actually approached by the Singapore International Foundation to contribute a chapter to a book on the experiences of Singaporeans overseas. And we wrote an essay, which we thought nobody would read. But as it turned out, we started getting floods, tons of emails, and all of them were really confessional and long, which doesn't quite comport with the usual image of Singaporeans. We're seen by most people as very reticent. So somehow we tapped into this real Oprah moment for Singaporeans, and we felt a little responsible, being, I guess, suddenly in possession of all these stories. And we kept wondering, what do we do with these stories? Should we write a response? Should we turn it into something else? And I guess that's how we began to think about doing a film that really was about Singapore and all its obsessions and what we go through on an everyday basis.
So I would say it's an amalgam of stories of people we knew and also personal experiences. And for me especially, it's about, we incorporated a lot of the stories of the women in my life, like my mother, my grandmother, my aunties.
But your background, as I understand it, was that neither of you was trained as a filmmaker.
Prior to shooting this film, we had also run a website called talkingcock.com.
Sounds rude.
Sounds rude, but it's not.
In Singapore Vernacular English, it simply means shooting the breeze. I guess you'd call it the Singaporean version of The Onion or Mad Magazine, and it's insanely popular, especially because, well, let's say Singapore is not very, a little iffy on the certain freedom of expression issues, and I guess we sort of skirt on the edge.
I should note, lest our viewers reach for the knob to turn off this broadcast, that I went myself to talkingcock.com, and you'll be reassured to know that there's a symbol of the head of a rooster on it.
Exactly. A speaking rooster.
A speaking rooster.
And it has nothing to do with talking turkey. And different fowl.
Different bird.
Yes.
The first film was called Talking Cock, the movie. Right? And it's kind of like Kentucky Fried Movie.
Okay.
So it's like...
Has a similar tie-in to chickens?
Yes, yes.
For decades, Singapore has waited for the one local film that will cross all borders. With beautiful cinematography, a powerful script, and compelling dramatic performances by an all-star cast. This is not that film.
Actually, this film is quite silly.
With some really stupid moments.
Oh, my nana!
In fact, this super low-budget movie gives cheap thrill a whole new meaning.
I guess we were at the beginning of sort of investigating whether we actually liked filmmaking. We'd never been to film school.
Yeah.
We had lucked out and won an award for a short film we shot just for no reason other than we were.
We were on holiday and we shot it.
And we thought we'd check it out, before we start getting invested in whether we wanted, to move forward. And we liked the process.
And then, so people loaned us cameras. We had the support of quite a lot of people.
And I guess it turned out to be the best film school you could actually ask for, because you didn't just learn, camera work or even film theory. You learned other things about production, dealing with the censors, distributorship, video. You had to do it all yourself because we had no choice. We had no money, so we had to do it all ourselves. So it really turned out, I think, to be a great experience, which we learned from and which we channeled into Singapore Dreaming, which went, much smoother.
But fill in, please, a few of the blanks. You're sitting here in New York, you get this response, you decide to make a film. You didn't just go out and rob a bank to get the money for it. Perhaps you did. Maybe maybe you don't want to talk about that on television.
That'll be on the DVDs.
That'll be on the DVD. Good.
I guess we were really lucky.
We never imagined it to be a big budget film. We wanted it to be a kind of small budgeted film because we wanted it has to feel intimate, and with raising the money, it was all private investors.
The fans of our website, came in to support.
They were the first people to support with money, and then later on we met an executive producer who would help us with, who said he would help us with the money, and he was a cosmetic surgeon.
I wanted to ask a little about the language in the film, because we hear a little of what I think is Mandarin.
Yes.
And then we hear something that often sounds like English, but then we're not sure.
Singlish.
Singlish.
Yeah, Singapore
Tell us
English.
a little about Singlish.
Singlish is Singaporean vernacular English. It's a Creole. It's our local Creole. It's also a bit like what Cockney is to London. And it's a mixture of English, we were a British colony, mixed in with some words from
Hokkien.
The Hokkien dialect, which is Southern Chinese dialect, from Malay
Cantonese.
and Cantonese, and it's all mixed up. And that's, if you go to Singapore, that's what you try, that's what you'll hear if you speak to an ordinary person. We definitely wanted the dialogue to be authentic to Singaporeans. Some Singapore films before us tended to be either almost completely in Mandarin. It didn't seem like Singapore. It seemed like some generic modern Chinese city. And neither do we speak completely in grammatical English all the time either. So this was very important to us.
Except in interviews.
Except in interviews.
Yeah.
In New York.
In New York.
Yeah, but it did bring a little concern from some of the censorship authorities because they were afraid, if people saw their own language on TV, they might be tempted to speak it.
We think it's a very valuable part of culture, and Singaporeans are very creative with language because of the confluence of so many people from different places. And we have also actually we are the editors of the Oxford Singlish Dictionary, which has
Say that again for our viewers.
The Oxford Singlish Dictionary, and it's available on Amazon.com.
And yet, despite the concern you had with the censor, I noticed in the press material for your film that is it the president of Singapore?
Yes.
That was a complete surprise.
Very thankfully, the president, President Nathan, came to the premiere of Singapore Dreaming, and so he liked it very much. And he liked it so much, he invited the whole cast and crew to his house for tea.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That was a surprise.
I'm curious also, as you've taken your film around, you won a major prize at a festival in northern Spain, as you mentioned. You've taken your film around the States. I imagine you've shown it elsewhere. Are there any questions that people have asked that you just didn't expect they would ask, or that reveal something about the film that they just didn't understand?
One question that was asked of us in Spain, which we were very surprised by, was it was more a comment. The Spanish audience, somebody mentioned that Singapore Dreaming kind of pulled away from the stereotype of Asia that they had, which was very Zen, which meant kind of very meditative, that Asians are kind of somehow quieter, and they were surprised at how the issues and struggles with capitalism was very similar to what they were experiencing. So we were surprised by that comment, simply because the Singapore that we know, which is part of Asia, is people are very talkative and people are not very zen. People are full of aggravation.
Definitely in need of some therapy. Yeah.
Filmmaking is often conceived of, film directing, as the occupation for one person. There are pairs of people, usually it seems to me brothers, who have made films together. The Coen brothers, the Taviani brothers, the Hughes brothers, the Farrelly brothers, a few others we're forgetting. But there are not too many married couples. What's it like, within the context of a marriage, being filmmakers?
We discovered filmmaking after we got married. So it's one of those things that it doesn't pull us in different directions because we discovered it together and we kind of became filmmakers together. So it's been quite good, actually.
Yeah, and on the set we tend to pick up where, when one of us flags, the other will support the other.
It's quite symbiotic. I mean, we don't really know.
And Yen actually has an excellent way to resolve disputes both on the set and off. Whenever we're about to have an argument, she insists we eat first. And this is a really good tip generally, because after you eat, nothing really seems... everything's fine, nothing seems to be...
that big a deal anymore.
That big a deal, that's right.
One is curious when one sees a film as unusual as Singapore Dreaming, what your next project might be. I'm curious, given what you've just talked about, whether you might incorporate that in your next film, but that's kind of cheating. Got something in mind for your next movie?
Yeah, we do.
We
We've been writing something on globalization and different forms of immigration, partially because we have lived in different neighborhoods in New York and have seen different people, different forms of immigration, from the kind of yuppie type of immigration to the Chinese takeout kind of immigration. So we are working on a script about those.
And it'll be our first New York film. So yes, after we've done the Singapore Dream, I guess we're tackling the American Dream, but kind of our way.
But Singapore Dreaming really is about globalization as well. How do you perceive it being different in Singapore and in New York?
There are certain similarities between what's happening in Singapore and what's happening in the US. We are seeing the income disparity increasing in Singapore. So at the same time that we've had in the past 2 years in Singapore, a vast number of people who became millionaires because they have capital investments and so on. At the same time that that's happening, we also realize that a lot of people who don't have capital investments, who are salaried workers and so on, haven't seen their income change very much. And at the same time, the cost of living is increasing. So that is a very specific condition of Singaporeans, and it's actually a new thing to Singapore, because so far Singapore hasn't seen that kind of income disparity. And also with the past generation, everybody felt like if you work hard enough, you will achieve middle class existence if you just work hard enough, and that's no longer true. We
wanted to explore, in Singapore Dreaming, it was specifically the economics, the dreams that were coming on into Singapore from the outside. With our next film, we hoped I guess it's a personal story, but it's going to be told without giving too much away. It's going to be personal stories from a group of different immigrants coming to New York.
Colin and Yen, thank you so much for traveling here to New York for us and presenting this wonderful film, Singapore Dreaming, to our Cinemondo audience. I hope it finds a big audience all around this country, and we'll be looking forward impatiently to seeing your next film.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Once again, I'm Peter Scarlet for Cinemondo on Link TV. Thanks for joining us.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only US network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.